everyone, and welcome back to another podcast episode. I'm really excited to have Ben Shichman with me today. He is a fractional CTO with a ton of experience, and we're going to be digging into your data and tech needs. Thanks for being on the show, Ben.
So great to be here. Thank you.
So let's start a little bit with your background. So, who are you? How did you get to where you are? And why are you going to be a fractional CTO now?
I've been in the CTO space for about 20 years. A number of years ago, I decided to make the switch into a fractional capacity. So I've been largely focused on B2B SaaS companies, but I spent the bulk of the last 10 years in e-commerce specifically.
Nice. E-commerce is a tricky one. There's a lot of technical needs, and it feels like everyone's shifting to platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce, or Magento's like that hybrid one. Are you finding any particular challenges as people are moving more to these large platforms?
Absolutely. And this is a large push we're seeing where more and more organizations who had built their e-commerce solutions on Magento or other legacy platforms are moving to Shopify and they're struggling to integrate with their ad platforms from a server side. That is leading to a loss of data, meaning the quality of the data being sent to the ad platforms from your website has been declining. If you're relying just on server-side pixels, you could be losing up to 30% of your customer tracking data, which in essence is lowering the data quality that you're sending to your ad platforms, which in turn will lower their ability to optimize their algorithm to your benefit.
How are you finding the solutions that are available in the market versus what you specifically have been doing for the brands you've been working with?
Sure. Historically, if we look, people were using Segment would integrate with their server-side systems and with the ad platforms directly with a good amount of success. The problem with Segment is it's extremely expensive. In addition, the systems that are integrating between Segment and, say, Shopify or BigCommerce are also expensive. Everyone's focused on the amount of transactions you're pushing through, and it just becomes a very expensive model. And as your business scales, your costs do as well. There are some newer solutions, though, that I've been exploring and working with specifically. There's a company called Elevar, and they have a solution that plugs directly into Shopify. And from Shopify, they go directly to the ad platforms. So they cover all the big ones. So TikTok and Google and Meta and Instagram, and as well as affiliate marketing partners like Impact. And it's a bit of a game changer. They integrate with Shopify and in essence give you the same level of quality as server-side integrations by using Shopify's webhooks, which are events that are triggered every time certain things happen on Shopify. So everything from your customer's add to cart event, product views, remove from cart, beginning checkout, entering billing information, all the way through purchase. Now, these events are triggered by Shopify itself. It's not reliant on some third-party service. Therefore, the fidelity of them is very high, and you don't have to worry about missing them. I have seen on average between 99 and 100% accuracy
Wow.
in the events being captured and being delivered to everything from the ad platforms to also Google Analytics, GA4. In addition, they can populate your data layer in Google Tag Manager. For the things that they don't integrate directly with, that you will have to rely on client pixels, you're still going to get a higher degree of accuracy by using a product like this.
And accuracy, I feel, is so important. Just having that visibility when you're trying to plan every dollar you spend can make such a difference. Have you gotten a chance to really test this out on, and how did that work out?
The easiest way to measure it is for a platform like Meta, they actually give you a data quality score in your integration control panel. So you're able to go in and they give it a ranking between 1 and 10 and down to the 10th of a percent. And I've seen the accuracy be raised by 15, 20, 30%, depending on the customer and the solution between going purely client side and this hybrid of client and server side. So it's a real measurable impact.
That's really interesting. As the data world's evolving and there's obviously these battles about cookies versus no cookies and everything else moving forward, how are you seeing that companies should be like, what should they be paying attention to? What questions should they be asking? What are the priorities here when they're looking at their tech stack and how they're managing their data?
Right, that's a great question. So in terms of like storage of cookies and that sort of thing, if you can make those first party cookies, meaning cookies that are generated from your website or perceived to be generated from your website, then you're lowering a lot of risk because things like cookie blockers will no longer apply. There are solutions like Get Elevar that I mentioned do generate these first party cookies. So it's coming from your website. Google has their own server side tag manager solution. There's a lot of opportunity there for people to explore. It's just server side tag manager from the user's perspective. It looks exactly like Google Tag Manager, so the learning curve isn't too steep. The trickiest part is working with someone to help populate your data layer effectively.
Yeah.
By moving all your data into first-party cookies, you're improving the data quality and also mitigating those cookie blockers and cross-site cookie blockers that are out there today.
Now, I really want to dig into that because I feel like this is a place that a lot of e-com owners are really confused. When do you have to have the cookie warning? When do you not? What cookies are you allowed to use? What are you not allowed to do? Can you talk through that a little bit more to make it clearer?
Sure, technically you're allowed to use any cookie, but you just have to present the user with options. So there's a number of cookie management solutions. OneTrust is a very large company I've worked with many times. If you go around the internet, you probably don't even realize how much you're interacting with OneTrust. They have such a big footprint. But generally, what these cookie management platforms do is they give you, as the site operator, the opportunity to categorize your cookies as these are essential to basic site operations. These are purely for marketing. These are for some other tracking purpose. And by creating these categories, you're giving the customer the opportunity to opt in or opt out from different types of categories. You're also giving yourself the opportunity to decide of if do I want to assume that people are accepting them if they're just ignoring the cookie banner, as most people do. They hit the little close button, that's the end of it. Or do I want to by default accept them? Now, if you're doing business within the United States, you have a lot more flexibility there. There are some state-specific privacy laws that people should be aware of. California, Virginia are two of the bigger ones. Obviously, states are rolling these out all the time, different privacy laws. But in Europe, they're much more strict, where the customer has to explicitly opt into things as opposed to opting out. But if you're doing business specifically in the United States and you have a pretty strong, you have a pretty, yeah, stop. If you're doing business primarily in the United States and you have a good geographic wall built around your site in that regard, then you have a little bit more flexibility. It is important to pay attention to these laws when crafting your privacy policy. But in terms of are you allowed to have all these cookies? Yes, you're allowed to have all these cookies.
Nice. So when you're looking and working with e-com companies, what are you evaluating in their tech stack that's like an absolute must-have that everyone should be paying attention to versus the nice to haves?
It all starts, first of all, do you have a high quality customer experience? That is first and foremost. Are you delighting the customer? Is the page loading fast? Is it easy to navigate the site? At this point, most e-commerce sites follow a very simple pattern, right? You have your home page, you have category pages, a product listing page, and a PDP. And from there, you go to cart and checkout. There's no reason to reinvent that wheel. If you click around the site long enough, you'll see on some of the legacy e-commerce platforms, you'll see different layouts and different approaches. There's just no need to do that. It's just confusing to the customer at this point. The second thing is with different types of businesses, you need to understand what their needs are. Stop. When we're moving to these new e-commerce platforms, we're looking to lower costs, and improve the customer experience. So we don't want to build things that you can just buy. And a lot of the legacy e-commerce companies have fairly large engineering teams, so that can be a bit of a change management issue because engineers like to build stuff. But if you can limit what you need to do to the absolute essential things to build and try to lower your maintenance costs, that's really where you're going to see a lot of the benefit of moving to a platform like Shopify. Sometimes you do need to do customizations. There are things that vendors don't currently support that you may need to customize and build, but you do want to try to minimize that as best you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you started with customer experience. I feel like a lot of people in IT and tech have a very engineering brain. So the first thing they'll go to is the nuts and the bolts and the data, but you start with customer. And I think every brand and every department within a brand needs to start with customer. Customer is the most important thing. Customer is why you're here. Customer's the thing that keeps your brand going. And you've worked with a lot of really interesting brands. You were telling me a little bit about a unique subscription model at a past brand you worked with. Can you talk about that a bit more?
Sure. I worked at an apparel brand, and they had a unique subscription model where the customer could subscribe to a monthly pair of underwear. And unlike most subscription models, you wouldn't get the same thing every month. In this company's case, they wanted to deliver a new pair of the same cut of underwear, meaning, let's say I like boxer briefs. That's what I'm most comfortable in. I would get a different pattern or a different print of the boxer briefs every month. And there needs to be a little bit of intelligence. Or am I likely to buy these and keep them? Or am I going to return them? Do we have them in stock? And that level of sophistication didn't exist in any off-the-shelf subscription system. We had to leverage Shopify's own subscription infrastructure and build a custom solution on top of it, which we were able to do. I also worked at recently with a nutraceutical company who had a much more straightforward subscription model. So we were able to use an off-the-shelf solution. So again, we're significantly lowering the management costs and engineering costs for the company to maintain that site moving forward in both cases.
As you're building out these custom solutions, and you're also obviously considering the data that you were talking about earlier, how are you finding the quality of personalization and intelligence that you were talking about with that underwear subscription company? How sophisticated are we really right now with tech understanding the end customer and being able to deliver exactly the right product that they need?
In the last 2 years, we've seen growth by leaps and bounds as LLMs and AI get deeper and deeper involved in the customer experience, specifically around search and product recommendation. The most immediate impact is in those two areas. So customers search for products, or once they have a certain amount of purchase history, an algorithm can better understand products that they're likely to purchase or likely to buy. And there's a number of off-the-shelf products that are doing this. Again, it's not a time for you to have to create your own large language model. A lot of the legacy and more sophisticated search and categorization companies have introduced AI and algorithmic recommendations, and it's truly improved the customer experience there.
AI is such a hot button topic right now. Everybody's talking about it. And I think AI, in a lot of ways, initially being introduced was the LLM. They were just tacking an LLM on top of whatever they were doing. And they're like, look, now we have AI. How do you see AI being incorporated in a smart way when you're looking at an e-com company, besides just like slapping something on and saying, look, now we're AI powered?
Again, this product recommendations is an easy out of the gate first step. Chatbots, especially around customer service, is another easy win. Most of the larger customer service SaaS companies have an LLM-based AI agent component to them that can be trained on your customer data. There's also product-specific chatbots that can be created. I recently created a chatbot using Chatbase, which is an interface to multiple large language models, where they had a very specific set of rules and guidelines that needed to be followed with a chatbot. It's a science-based product. They needed to be sure that all responses that were given to customers included cited examples of where the source material came from. And what that is doing is something twofold. Number one, it's giving the customer to self-serve in terms of education in a quick way. They're interacting with something and they're asking a question. It's a little more conversational than going to an FAQ page. The second thing, though, is the reporting that you would then get. So when a customer is interacting with a chatbot, you actually get to see what are they asking? What are they talking about? What that can do is help you improve your chatbot, yes, but also can help you hone your marketing message. So that's a real opportunity that I think is untapped that people are just starting to discover now. So whether they're interacting with the customer service chatbots or some bespoke chatbot for a well-defined purpose, there's a wealth of data there that can help inform you on how to better communicate with your customer.
It feels like going back to what you originally started saying is think customer first. What is the user experience? And then which AI tool gets you to that better user experience?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just having the AI tool itself doesn't mean anything. CEOs across the industry saying, we need AI. And we say, okay, what would you like? And they say, I don't know. What should we have?
Yeah.
And it goes back to what are the problems that we need to solve. I did hear a very interesting panel once discuss LLMs and how people should think about them, where large language models, there's going to be a few companies when this all shakes out that provide these large language models. Obviously, ChatGPT and Claude, and there's going to be a few others, but they need to be very large. They consume a lot of power and they consume a lot of compute. So where are the opportunities? It's really in the data. The data is where you can surface something meaningful. So if you think of the large language models as oil refineries, the data is the oil. So you need to find these unique data repositories that can help you better understand what your customers' experience are and what the opportunities are with those customers.
How are you finding in an e-commerce journey, are companies looking at the data and their tech early, too late sometimes as you're working with these companies? Where do you feel like someone with your expertise would be the right time, the right place, the right element to bring in a fractional CTO to really help with this data refining and building out a better solution?
Sure. We're at this inflection point where a lot of companies who built their solutions on Magento and other platforms a decade ago are looking at their balance sheet and realizing that they have this tremendous expense in engineering and site maintenance. They're also seeing that it's taking longer and longer for things to get done by their teams due to the amount of technical debt that's been built up over the years. So they're looking to migrate to these new platforms. So we're seeing more and more of this right now, where companies are moving to Shopify and BigCommerce really to lower their costs and simplify their maintenance and tech stack. It's really giving them a lot more options. That's really where I can help companies specifically. Companies who are making this transition or even considering making these transition. A lot of companies will say we can just work with an agency. And yes, there's a lot of really great agencies out there. The problem is the agency isn't necessarily aligned with your goals as a business. You need an internal stakeholder who's technical, who can help marshal the resources internally and connect with your external resources and agency to really help make sure that we're delivering the right solution for the company.
Yeah, with the internal resource, I found it's helpful just because every company that we work with has its own unique scenario. It has its own unique needs. It has its own unique history that you can only learn so much of as an outsider. I feel like agencies come in and give a really good outside perspective when you need that, but have a fractional CTO in-house to help actually communicate effectively and protect the resources of the company itself in a way that ensures that you actually get the solution you need, not the solution necessarily that everyone else is on.
Absolutely. At the large apparel brand, when they brought me on, they had gone through several failed implementations of Shopify, including some with major agencies who I'm not going to name here, both on the UX side and on the Shopify build out side. Now, why is that? I think largely, again, they didn't have internal technical leadership. So it was very difficult to make sure that the agency was aligned with the goals of the business and what they were trying to achieve. And to really measure the solution that the agency was proposing to make sure that it's the right one for the business. Companies can really benefit by being a little bit proactive in their planning and working with someone like myself to help them evaluate agencies and evaluate solutions, put forward RFPs, and then help manage the process as we migrate.
Definitely. Yeah, I unfortunately have had to apologize for other agencies quite a bit when we start
Yeah.
working with companies. But as an agency owner, I can tell you, I absolutely love when we have an internal partner on just because to get stuff done and to know the nuances that you just can't know when you're not in the day to day. And even having a fractional resource is such a good because you're dedicated to really understanding your client completely and then communicating that effectively. And you have experience working with both sides. And
I
that's
mean, having a great agency partner is critical to the success here often. At the nutraceutical company, where we're just wrapping up this project, we had to migrate from a legacy bespoke platform onto Shopify, and we chose a solutions partner agency here in Los Angeles, and they were great. The communication was fantastic. They were essentially members of the team in an adjunct capacity. And the communication was there. Everyone felt that they were well represented. We were able to work through technical challenges together. And I think having that partnership is critical to success.
Yeah. And that's why fractional resources are really helpful. If you're an e-com company that's growing fast, you might not be able to bring on a full-time CTO. You might not know whether or not you even need one, but a fractional resource becomes a really good asset in that sense. Are you getting the full access to your data? Is your subscription platform really serving your needs, or is it just too basic?
And I think sometimes they'll try to rely on existing staff or their marketing teams or even their IT teams, but these folks aren't well positioned to help from a technical perspective in vetting these solutions and making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
How do you see the future of e-commerce changing in general over the next 5, 10, 15 years and tech's role in that?
Sure. I think Shopify is going to have a larger and larger footprint. They're doing really well. They have an opportunity on the B2B side to really up their game. BigCommerce is a little stronger on B2B, but I'm not sure that they've really hit their marketing game in terms of getting that message out there. So I think Shopify's got a great opportunity. We're going to see a lot more AI integrated with all sorts of different things from content generation and image generation and things that are going to lessen the workload on the marketing teams. Similar with advertising platforms, I think we're going to see a lot more automation and use of AI in advertising. In terms of payments, I think we're going to continue to see this move towards digital wallet solutions. Shop Pay on Shopify has a footprint of, I'm not sure if the stat was 70 or 80 million Americans have Shop Pay. It is a tremendous amount. This company that the nutraceutical company that we just moved over, 50% of their transactions in the first 3 months were used by using Shop Pay, and a little more than 50% were used for initiating subscriptions. So the number two was Apple Pay, and it was maybe 10 to 15% of transactions. I think focusing on these digital wallets and really understanding what are the primary ones for my customers. Is it Shop Pay? Is it Apple Pay? Google Pay? Of course, Amazon has their Buy with Prime option. I'm not seeing a lot of movement with Venmo. That's another possible solution depending on your customer. We're going to continue to see that migration. The other area I think we're going to see some interesting movement in is the use of AI and integrations, meaning different products will have, in essence, AI representing them from an API standpoint. So instead of spending a lot of money or time integrating platforms, the two AIs will just talk to each other and work out what the contract is in terms of data quality and data transfer. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to start seeing that, and it's going to lower costs dramatically on the integration side as well.
A lot of people are really thinking AI is going to help lower costs across a lot of things. And
Absolutely.
as long as you get that quality, that's really insightful. I think you've shared a lot of really interesting areas of where the future could go. And especially with the digital wallets, there's a lot of opportunity there. I know they even have their own like Prime days, like Afterpay has Afterpay Day once or twice a year. And I think
Yes,
ShopPay does something similar. So from a marketing perspective, there's some fun there too that you should definitely be aware of. And I agree with you. I think a lot of people are like, oh, once they get to the payment side, I don't have to think about it. But actually, there's opportunity there too.
there's a lot of opportunity there. And then, of course, then there's what happens for post-purchase opportunities, which there are many solutions out there, but that's a whole nother podcast.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Ben. It was a really fun conversation. We got to dig into a lot of the tech side of things, which we don't get to do very often. So, for everyone listening, my guest today was Ben Shichman, who is a fractional CTO. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Best way to get a hold of me right now is just find me on LinkedIn. My last name is Shichman.
Perfect.
Thanks again for your time.
All right, that's it.